O que imos a facer, eu vou a dar paso xa a primeira participante, que procede de Paquistán, a Merr Hussain. Nada, vou vos dar unhas pequenas notas. Merr Hussain é unha paquistaní británica que reside agora mesmo en Lahore, en Paquistán. Non sei se o pronuncio ben, posiblemente non, así que xa pido disculpas de antemán. Foi columnista de varios xornais, como Daily Mail, como Friday Times, apareceu en The Economist, 1843, The Times of London, The Times of India, The Hindu, The Diplomats, entre outros, non? Ademais, traballou xa na non ficción sobre a historia cultural de Paquistán en libros como Multan, A Spiritual Legacy, en 2014, sobre as estructuras antigas nunha das cidades máis antigas do mundo e tamén en Paquistán, unha historia de moda, e no 2018 fundou Zuka. Así que, sen máis preámbulos, lle dou a palabra a Merr. Merr, it's your turn. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here. Marola, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Sitting here in Pakistan, one of the things that I covered was about how rapidly things are changing in our country, but unfortunately, the more they change, the more they stay the same. And it's a very sort of, I've looked at the pandemic from a very philosophical lens, because when we went into lockdown, which is in March earlier this year, there was rapid spread of corona. And the government was really unsure of what to do, because we found ourselves in a conundrum that if lockdown was imposed, the country suffered economically. However, if lockdown was not imposed, people were going to die. And the general feeling was that, look, people don't work, then they're not going to eat. So either way, we're going to die. So we just continue living our lives. And I suppose that sort of fatalistic attitude came from the fact that Pakistan has gone through so much over the previous decades. And of course, with this pandemic, there was also the assurance of being a third world country with the immunity that comes with it, that nothing can really happen to us. However, when people started dying and the real impact of it began to, people began to realize what it was about, the government issued a lockdown. Now, what was interesting was how Pakistan reacted to the lockdown. I mean, let's face facts. Pakistan is struggling in terms of all its indicators, human development indicators, whether it's education, whether it's health. But interestingly, what happened was that the entire country, when it came to the digital realm, found its feet, which is fascinating to see. For example, this development organization that I work with, what we found was that our rural artisans based in villages where they've had little to no education, it was fascinating to see them navigate their way on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, without actually reading what was going on. Small businesses, the e-commerce has suddenly taken this massive expansion where people have switched on to the digital realm. Publishers such as myself have suddenly realized that ebooks are the future if the Pakistani publishing industry is to have a future. Now, what we find ourselves in is another conundrum altogether. While the country has transitioned slowly but steadily onto the digital realm, what is a matter of concern and what is very interesting to see is how those behavior patterns in physical life are manifesting themselves on the digital realm. So a whole new dimension, a Pandora's box has sort of opened up, such as things like cyber crime, cyber harassment, how do we deal with it, what do we do, even feminism. I mean, to see how women are being, how they live their lives on the street. And contrary to popular belief, Pakistan is not an Arab country. We don't travel on camels and we don't wear burqas. We're very much a South Asian country. But what's interesting is to see how females have suddenly taken the reign and they're owning their identity. They're sharing their stories. They're sharing their personal lives all on the digital realm. It's out there for anyone and everyone to see. So it's kind of fascinating to see the impact that COVID-19 has had in Pakistan in the sense that it's pushed it towards the digital realm. But in a sense, it's also become a mouthpiece, particularly for women and the oppressed and minorities. who have not always had it easy. And yet now the international media is picking up on all of these things as well. So in a way, although some argue that it is the end of globalization, I feel that for Pakistan, it's a very different story. The world is finally sort of listening and watching and seeing and hearing what we have to say, but from a very different perspective. So it isn't exactly a globalization impact, it's more for Corona impact. But I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out, given that the future is digital now.